At a fancy dinner with her friends, my girlfriend whispered, "Don't embarrass me tonight, just smile and pay the bill." I agreed. When the waiter dropped off 2 separate bills, the room went silent. There is a specific type of silence that is louder than any argument. It is the sound of reality crashing into a room full of entitled people. I heard that silence for the first time last night. It was the most satisfying sound I have ever heard, and I was the one who composed it. To understand what happened, you need to understand my relationship with Jessica. For 2 years, I thought we were building a future. I am a software engineer. My life is logical, structured, and I value efficiency over flash. Jessica is in public relations. Her life is about perception, image, and social currency. I thought our differences balanced each other out. I saw us as a team. I would build the engine, and she would design the beautiful exterior. We were partners, splitting our bills and making decisions together. I was not a sugar daddy, and she was not a freeloader. That was the story I told myself anyway. Her friends were another story. A pack of 4 women who treated life like a contest and their social media feeds like the scoreboard. There was Catherine, the leader, who was married to a man who was always conveniently out of town on business. There was Maya, who spoke about her trust fund as if it were a personality trait. And there was Olivia, who changed her career path every 6 months, but never seemed to actually work. They were a whirlwind of expensive brunches, weekend getaways, and designer labels. I never fit in with them, and I never tried to. I was polite, but I did not engage with their gossip or their constant one-upmanship. They treated me with a kind of detached curiosity, like a strange pet Jessica had adopted. They could not understand why she was with a guy who wore a regular watch instead of a Rolex and drove a reliable sedan instead of a German luxury car. The event that changed everything was Catherine's birthday dinner. It was at one of those restaurants where the menu does not have prices and the water costs $20 a bottle. Jessica had been talking about it for weeks. She told me it was incredibly important for her to make a good impression. A few days before the dinner, she sat me down. She explained that all of her friends' husbands and boyfriends were successful and that they always picked up the check for these kinds of events. She asked if just this once, I would be willing to cover the entire bill for the table of 6. She framed it as a birthday gift for Catherine and a way to finally be part of the group. I am not a fool. I knew what this was. It was a test, but I also saw it as a calculated investment in our relationship. So I agreed. I told her I would be happy to do it. Her relief was so profound it should have been a red flag, but I ignored it. Last night, we arrived at the restaurant. Her friends were already there, dressed to the nines, and already on their 2nd bottle of champagne. The conversation was a blur of names I did not know and places I had never been. I was an outsider, an observer, and that was exactly how they wanted it. As we were looking at the menus, Jessica leaned over to me. Her smile was tight, her eyes were sharp. She whispered, so quietly that only I could hear, "Don't embarrass me tonight. Don't talk about your boring coding stuff. Just smile, nod, and pay the bill when it comes. Can you do that for me?" And there it was, the truth stripped bare of all pretense. I was not a guest. I was not her partner. I was a function, a wallet, an accessory she needed to complete her image for the night. Something inside me did not break. It clicked into place. All the small moments of disrespect, the little condescending comments, the times I felt tolerated instead of loved, they all aligned into a perfect, clear picture. I saw the system, and I saw the flaw. I looked back at her and gave her my most reassuring smile. "Of course," I said. I agreed. "I will take care of it." She squeezed my hand, satisfied, and turned back to her friends. For the rest of the dinner, I played my part perfectly. I smiled, I nodded. I listened to their stories about yacht parties and trips to Aspen. They ordered with abandon. Appetizers, lobster, the finest steaks, multiple bottles of the most expensive wine. They were not just having a meal. They were running up a score, and I was the one who was supposed to pay for the points. About halfway through the main course, I excused myself to use the restroom. I did not go to the restroom. I found our waiter, a professional man in his 40s with tired eyes. I pulled him aside. "There has been a change of plans," I said, pressing a $200 bill into his hand. "I need you to do something for me, and I need you to be discreet." I explained that I wanted him to prepare 2 separate bills. The first bill would be for myself and my girlfriend, Jessica, only. The second bill would be for the other 4 women at the table. I gave him my credit card and told him to charge me for my bill and Jessica's bill immediately, and to add a very generous tip for himself. "When it is time for the check," I said, "I want you to bring both bills to the table. Place my paid receipt in front of me, and place their check in the middle of their side of the table. Do not say a word about it unless they ask." He looked from the money in his hand to my face, and a small, almost imperceptible smile touched his lips. He understood. He nodded once and disappeared toward the kitchen. I went back to the table. The performance continued. They laughed and drank, completely oblivious. Jessica would occasionally glance at me and give me a little approving nod, as if I were a dog that had successfully learned a new trick. Finally, the moment came. The waiter arrived at our table. With practiced silent precision, he placed a small black folder in front of me. It contained my credit card and the paid receipt. Then he placed a second, much thicker folder in the exact center of the table, directly in front of Catherine and Maya. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then Catherine, the birthday girl, reached for the check, probably to admire the grand total I was about to pay. She opened it, and then I heard it. The beautiful, perfect sound of silence. She stared at the bill, her smile frozen on her face. Maya leaned over to look, and her eyes went wide. Olivia and the other friends stopped their conversation mid-sentence. The silence spread across the table like a stain. It was heavy, confused, and laced with the dawning horror of financial reality. Jessica was the last to understand. She looked at the paid receipt in front of me, then at the massive bill in Catherine's hand, and then back at me. Her face went through a rapid series of emotions: confusion, then panic, then a deep, burning rage. Catherine finally found her voice. It was a small, weak sound. "There must be a mistake," she said to the empty air. "He was supposed to pay." I took a slow sip of my water. I looked at Jessica, then at her friends. I smiled, I nodded, and then I spoke, my voice calm and clear in the silent room. "Jessica asked me to do 2 things tonight," I said. "Smile and pay the bill. I have done both. My bill is paid." I stood up from the table, placed my napkin neatly beside my plate, and looked at Jessica one last time. The mask was gone. All that was left was the ugly truth of who she was. "You should probably figure that out," I said, gesturing to the bill. "I believe your share of the lobster is on there." I turned and walked out of the restaurant. I did not look back. I did not need to. The silence I left behind was all the confirmation I needed. The show was over, and they were the ones left to pay for the tickets. Update 1. It has been 1 week since the dinner. A week of chaos, recriminations, and the sweet, sweet sound of my phone not ringing with demands. Thank you for all the comments and the support. It is good to know that standing up for yourself is still something people respect. Many of you wanted to know what happened after I walked out. It was even better than I could have planned. I did not go home that night. I had anticipated that the apartment would become a war zone. Instead, I had packed a bag earlier that day and checked into a hotel. I turned my phone off and slept for 8 solid hours, the best sleep I have had in years. When I turned my phone back on the next morning, it was a digital battlefield. I had dozens of missed calls and a long stream of text messages. The first texts were from Jessica, and they were pure rage. "How could you do that to me? You humiliated me. Call me right now. You are a monster. A cruel, evil monster. My friends hate me because of you. You owe them that money. You promised. You are going to pay it, or I swear I will make your life a living nightmare." Then there were the messages from her friends. They had apparently gotten my number from Jessica in their shared fury. From Catherine: "I have never been so embarrassed in my life. You are a cheap, pathetic excuse for a man. You owe me an apology, and you owe me for my birthday dinner." From Maya: "My father's lawyers will be in contact with you. What you did was fraud." Their threats were as empty as their bank accounts, and they knew it. I did not reply to a single message. Instead, I initiated the next phase of my plan. The apartment we lived in was mine. I had it before I met Jessica. She had moved in a year ago. Her name was not on the lease. On the morning after the dinner, I sent her a calm, simple email. Subject: your belongings. Jessica, after the events of last night, our relationship is over. You have until the end of the week, 5 days from today, to pack your things and move out of my apartment. Please provide me with a time when you would like to do this so I can ensure I am not there. If your belongings are not removed by Sunday at 5 p.m., I will have them professionally packed and put into a storage unit in your name. The first month will be paid for. After that, it will be your responsibility. I think this is the most efficient way to handle this. I did not sign it with love. I did not sign it at all. Her reply was a long, rambling mess of accusations and pleas. She said she had nowhere to go, that I was throwing her out on the street. She said she could not afford to move. This is where my preparation paid off. I had known for months that Jessica's financial situation was a house of cards. She earned a decent salary, but she spent it all, and then some, on maintaining her image. The expensive clothes, the brunches, the trips, it was all funded by a combination of her paycheck and a steady, subtle stream of my money. She would forget her wallet when we went out or ask me to cover a bill that she would pay me back for later, which she never did. I replied to her email with a single attachment, a spreadsheet. For the past 6 months, I had been tracking our shared expenses. Every time she had used my credit card for her personal items, every dinner I had paid for, every weekend trip funded by me, I had documented it all. The spreadsheet showed that over the last year, I had subsidized her lifestyle to the tune of nearly $20,000, outside of our shared living expenses. My email was short. Subject, your belongings. Jessica, I believe you will find that you have more than enough resources to secure a new place to live. You simply need to adjust your spending habits to match your actual income. Attached is a summary of the funds you have saved over the past year by not having to pay for your own expenses. Please let me know when you will be collecting your things. The emails stopped after that. The reality of her situation, presented in the cold, hard language of a spreadsheet, was something she could not argue with. The best part of the fallout, however, was what happened between her and her friends. I heard from a mutual acquaintance that the dinner bill was over $3,000. Without me to cover it, the 4 of them were left to split it. For women who lived on credit and perception, a sudden, unexpected bill of over $700 each was a catastrophe. They did not handle it gracefully. Catherine insisted that since it was her birthday, she should not have to pay as much. Maya argued that she had only had 1 glass of the expensive wine, so her share should be smaller. The argument apparently devolved into a screaming match in the middle of the restaurant. They ended up having to put the bill on multiple credit cards. And the friendship, which was built on the shaky foundation of social climbing, completely fractured. They all blamed Jessica. She was the one who had brought the broke loser into their group. She was the one who had guaranteed he would pay. Her social standing, the thing she had valued more than our relationship, was now in ruins. She had been cast out of the very group she had tried so hard to impress. She has chosen Saturday to move her things out. I will be at my office, running a system diagnostic. It feels fitting. I am debugging my life, removing the corrupted files, and preparing for a system reboot. She thought she could use me. She thought I was just another line of code she could manipulate. She forgot that I am the one who writes the code. Update 2. It has been a month since the night of the separate bills. The process of detangling my life from Jessica's has been both methodical and, in a strange way, deeply satisfying. Every box she carried out of my apartment was another step towards my own freedom. The move out was as pathetic as you might imagine. She did not hire movers. She could not afford them. She and her mother spent a Saturday hauling boxes and furniture out of my apartment. I was not there as promised. I had a friend, a large and imposing guy named Ben, stay at my place to supervise. He told me the atmosphere was thick with resentment. Jessica's mother kept making comments about how her daughter had wasted her best years on me. Ben just stood there, arms crossed, and made sure they did not take any of my things. The real consequences for Jessica and her friends, however, have been far more severe than a fractured friendship and a large dinner bill. My plan did not end when I walked out of that restaurant. That was just the beginning. A few weeks ago, I received a certified letter from a lawyer representing Catherine's husband, the one who was always out of town on business. It turns out he was not just out of town. He was in the process of a long, quiet separation from her, documenting her spending habits in preparation for their divorce. The $3,000 dinner bill, charged to a credit card he was monitoring, was the final piece of evidence he needed to prove her reckless spending of marital assets. The letter was not a threat. It was a request. He was asking if I would be willing to provide a statement about the events of that evening. He wanted to confirm that Catherine and her friends had ordered extravagantly with the full expectation that someone else would be paying. I had my lawyer draft a formal, factual statement. I detailed Jessica's request for me to pay, her friends' ordering habits, and the final bill. I did not add any emotion or opinion. I just provided the data. That statement, I am told, has become a key exhibit in their divorce proceedings. Catherine is not going to get the generous settlement she was expecting. She is going to be held accountable for her lifestyle. Then there was Maya, the one with the trust fund. Her angry threats about her father's lawyers prompted me to do a little research. A few searches of public records revealed that her family's wealth was not as secure as she pretended. Her father's company had been hit with a major lawsuit a few months ago, and their assets were under scrutiny. I did not do anything with this information directly. I did not need to. I simply sent an anonymous email to a well-known financial gossip columnist in our city. The email contained a tip about the restaurant incident, framing it as a story about the children of the elite living large while their family fortunes crumble. I included the names of the restaurant, Maya, and her father's company. The columnist, always hungry for a story about the rich behaving badly, wrote a small but scathing piece about it. The article did not mention the lawsuit directly, but it raised enough questions to cause a stir. The negative publicity has apparently caused a great deal of trouble for her father and their ongoing legal battles. Jessica's life, in the meantime, has completely unraveled. After moving in with her parents, she tried to continue her smear campaign against me. She told everyone I was controlling and financially abusive, but her credibility was shot. Her closest friends, the ones she had tried to impress, were now her enemies. They were telling everyone who would listen the true story of the dinner, painting Jessica as a user who had brought disaster upon them all. The final move I made was for my own peace of mind. Jessica's name was still on the application for the apartment we had been planning to rent together once my lease was up. We had put down a significant security deposit months ago from our joint account. She had been texting me, demanding her half of the deposit back. I contacted the management company of the new building. I explained that we were no longer together and that I would be withdrawing my application. I also sent them a detailed record of the joint account showing that over 90% of the funds in that account, including the entire security deposit, had come from my income. I also included a copy of the spreadsheet I had sent to Jessica, showing the $20,000 of her lifestyle I had subsidized. I suggested that, given the circumstances, the most equitable solution would be to refund the entire deposit to me. The management company, faced with a potential legal headache, agreed. They mailed me a check for the full amount. I emailed Jessica a copy of the letter from the management company, along with the voided check. I told her that I considered the matter of her share of our savings to be settled. She is now truly on her own, no friends, no financial safety net, and a reputation that is in tatters. She is living with her parents, a 30-year-old woman whose entire life of perception and image has been exposed as a hollow shell. She tried to use me as a stepping stone, but she misjudged the stone and fell into the river. Final update. It has been 6 months. The silence on my end has been total, but the echoes of that one dinner continue to reverberate through the lives of the people who were there. I have moved on, but I have also kept an ear to the ground. The final outcomes are, in a word, perfect. My life has improved in every measurable way. I got a promotion at work, I have been focusing on my health, and I have reconnected with old friends who I had neglected while I was busy trying to fit into Jessica's world. My new apartment is my sanctuary. It is decorated with things I like, not things that are meant to impress people I do not care about. It is quiet, it is logical, and it is mine. The lives of Jessica and her friends, however, are a study in karma. Catherine's divorce was finalized last month. As I suspected, my statement had a significant impact. Her husband was able to prove a pattern of wasteful spending, and her final settlement was a fraction of what she had expected. She had to sell her car and is now living in a small apartment, a far cry from the lavish home she once occupied. The queen bee has lost her throne. Maya and her family are still dealing with the fallout from the negative publicity. The lawsuit against her father's company ended in a settlement that cost them a fortune. They are not poor, but their days of casual, conspicuous wealth are over. Maya, I am told, has had to get a real job. The trust fund is no longer a personality trait. It is a lifeline she has to carefully manage. Olivia, the fourth friend, has faded into obscurity. Her social climbing ambitions were tied to Catherine and Maya. With their fall from grace, she has no one left to cling to. And Jessica. Her story is the most complete. After months of living with her disappointed parents, she finally found a new job. It is a step down from her previous position with less pay and no prestige. She has moved into a small studio apartment in a less desirable part of town. She is living the life she can actually afford, and she is miserable. The final, satisfying piece of news came to me indirectly. The waiter from the restaurant, the one who helped me execute my plan, now works at a different establishment closer to my office. I go there for lunch sometimes. He recognized me a few weeks ago. He told me that the story of that night has become a legend among the staff at his old restaurant. He said that after I left, the four women had a full-blown meltdown. They argued for nearly an hour before Catherine's husband, who she had to call in tears, finally came and paid the bill over the phone, an act of finality before his lawyers took over. The waiter then told me something that made this entire ordeal worthwhile. He said that a few weeks ago, Jessica came into his new restaurant on a date. He was not her server, but he saw her. He said she looked smaller, less confident. At the end of her meal, he watched as she and her date split the bill. That is the real victory. It is not that she is struggling. It is not that her friends are gone. It is that the lesson was learned. She wanted me to be a wallet, a silent partner in her life of illusion. But the thing about illusions is that they eventually fade, and all you are left with is the cold, hard reality of the bill. She is finally paying her own way, and I am free. My life is no longer about funding someone else's perception. It is about building my own reality. And my reality is solid, it is stable, and it is paid in full.